They keep to themselves. They question what others accept. They see patterns no one else notices. They don't chase attention, they observe it. And that's exactly why they make people uncomfortable. Intelligent people are rarely celebrated in real time because they don't fit, they don't follow, they don't flatter mediocrity. Arthur Schopenhauer believed that high intelligence is often a curse in disguise. Because society doesn't admire it, it fears it. The more unintelligent a man is, the less mysterious existence seems to him. This video is about why the most insightful minds often become the most isolated ones. Smart people don't just think more, they think differently. They question the script, they doubt traditions. They find holes in every system, every lie, every narrative. But society doesn't like questions. It likes consensus, agreement, harmony, even if it's fake. Talent hits a target no one else can hit. Genius hits a target no one else can see. That kind of mind isn't easy to include, so it's left out by force or by choice. The average person lives on the surface. They believe what they're told. They adopt popular beliefs. They seek comfort over truth. But the intelligent mind isn't satisfied with surface answers. It wants depth, complexity, uncomfortable truths. And that creates tension, because when you refuse to play along, you threaten the illusion everyone else is living inside. A man can be himself only so long as he is alone. This is why the crowd resists the thinker, not because they're wrong, but because they're disruptive. You can't be easily sold to. You're not manipulated by status games. You see the machinery behind authority. You ask, why? When others ask, how high? That's dangerous. Systems run on compliance, on average thought, on repetition. And intelligent people, they interrupt that flow. They slow it down. They expose its flaws. They spark disobedience. Ordinary people merely think how they shall spend their time. A man of talent tries to use it. No wonder society prefers influencers over thinkers. Influencers preserve systems. Thinkers rebuild them. Even from a young age, they feel different. They get bored in class. They ask questions adults can't answer. They feel alienated by small talk. They see through hypocrisy and get punished for saying so. They're told to just go with it, but their mind won't let them, because it's not wired for compliance. It's wired for truth. To live alone is the fate of all great souls, and so the intelligent become quiet, not because they have nothing to say, but because most people aren't ready to hear it. For most people, silence is rest. For intelligent minds, silence is a storm, because the moment the world quiets down, the overthinking begins. Analyzing every past conversation, questioning the meaning behind everything, seeing the consequences no one else notices. The average mind finds peace in simplicity. The intelligent mind finds complexity in everything. The greatest of follies is to sacrifice health for any other kind of happiness, and that's the double-edged sword. You understand more, but you carry more too. To the crowd, solitude is punishment. To the thinker, it's a necessity, because in a world full of noise, truth needs space to be heard. A man can be himself only so long as he is alone. If he does not love solitude, he will not love freedom. The intelligent aren't antisocial, they're anti-superficial. They crave depth, authenticity, mental stillness. That's why they withdraw, not out of arrogance, but self-preservation. Because being around shallow minds for too long feels like cognitive suffocation. It's not just a gift, it's a weight. Intelligent people often feel more, not because they're dramatic, but because they see more. They notice every contradiction. They recognize every illusion. They internalize what others overlook, and that depth can become despair. The more clearly we apprehend the world, the more absurd it seems. This is why some of the most brilliant people also struggle the most with meaning, anxiety, and isolation, because they're awake in a world that begs you to stay asleep. There comes a point when intelligent people stop debating, not because they're wrong, but because they're tired. Tired of having to explain the obvious, tired of being met with blank stares, tired of having their insights misunderstood or dismissed as too much. Compassion is the basis of morality, so they go quiet, not out of defeat, but out of wisdom. Because not every truth is meant to be shared with those who only want to hear what's comfortable. The smarter you are, the harder it is to feel truly understood. Not because you're better, but because you see more layers than most people are willing to explore. You analyze their words and what's behind them. You question motives. You detect contradictions they don't even realize they're living with. This makes intimacy difficult. You crave deep connection, but can't fake closeness. And most people want companionship, not confrontation with their illusions. The deeper your understanding, the more alone you often feel. Because people don't want the truth. They want what's comfortable. They want confirmation, not confrontation. You start to notice people avoid hard conversations. They shut down when you ask real questions. They label you as negative when you're just being honest. Every man takes the limits of his own field of vision for the limits of the world. So you learn to keep your insights to yourself, not because you lack conviction, but because you respect your time and energy too much to waste it. Schopenhauer didn't romanticize suffering. He saw it as baked into existence. He believed that the more conscious you are, the more aware you become of life's limitations, absurdities, and cruelties. The intelligent mind can't help but notice what others ignore. The injustice in everyday systems, the impermanence of joy, the inevitability of loss, the emptiness in most people's pursuits. This makes peace feel impossible at times, because once you wake up, you can't unsee. Some thinkers try to numb it, overconsume information, escape into fantasy, distract with overachievement, or just detach entirely, but none of it works, because intelligence isn't just what you know, it's how deeply you feel what you know, and you can't unknow your awareness. To overcome difficulties is to experience the full delight of existence. You don't escape it, you learn to carry it, to integrate it, and through that, you begin to carve out a different kind of peace. Not the kind that forgets reality, but the kind that walks through it awake. When the world feels too loud, too shallow, too absurd, you begin to detach, not as a cold act of rejection, but as an act of mental survival. Schopenhauer saw detachment not as withdrawal, but as clarity. A man can do what he wants, but not want what he wants. In other words, your desires aren't always your own. Society plants them. Culture inflames them. Ego clings to them. Detachment helps you see through that, not to stop feeling, but to stop being ruled by illusion. In a world obsessed with speed, the intelligent move differently. They observe before they act. They question before they commit. They pause where others rush, not because they're indecisive, but because they know the cost of blind action. The wise have always said the same things, and fools, who are the majority, have always done just the opposite. Thinking deeply takes time. Understanding takes time. And those who move slowly by choice often arrive where others never even knew they could go. Slowness isn't weakness, it's sovereignty. Intelligent people don't need to shout. They don't need validation. They don't need to be seen to feel real. Why? Because their strength is internal. They develop a quiet confidence, one that doesn't perform, doesn't prove, doesn't beg. Great men are like eagles and build their nest on some lofty solitude. Their presence becomes unsettling, not because it's loud, but because it's unshakable. And in a world full of noise, nothing is more powerful than a mind at peace with itself. If you ever feel like your insights are a burden, you're not imagining it. Society rewards predictability, not wisdom, not depth, not truth. What it fears most is someone who doesn't need the system, someone who sees through it and isn't afraid to walk alone. A man who does not enjoy his own company is usually right. The intelligent scare society because they can't be easily led. They think before they follow, and that kind of autonomy disrupts the machine. You're not broken. You're not antisocial. You're not too much. You just haven't been in the right room. The crowd won't understand you. It was never meant to. Your path was always supposed to be different. And Schopenhauer knew the greatest thinkers don't belong to the crowd. They walk ahead of it. The person who writes for fools is always sure of a large audience. Let the crowd be loud. You stay clear. Let them chase approval. You chase meaning. Because solitude isn't exile. It's elevation. The world doesn't change because of mass consensus. It changes because of a few minds who dared to see differently. Your discomfort with small talk, your craving for silence, your refusal to worship the trends, that's not dysfunction. That's your mind doing what it was made to do. Wake up. You're not here to blend in. You're here to bring light to what others refuse to face. You've likely heard it before. You think too much. You're too serious. You're always analyzing everything. But what they call overthinking is often just depth in motion. Because your attention isn't on the surface. It's swimming beneath it. You listen differently. You speak carefully. You notice the silence between words, the contradiction in smiles, the stories behind someone's tone. To others, it can feel like distance, like you're hard to read, like you're disconnected. But you're not disconnected. You're tuned into a frequency most people have never heard. And when they can't follow the current, they assume you're adrift. Let them. You're not lost, you're just far below the surface. Schopenhauer didn't romanticize intelligence. He understood its cost. To be intellectually awake is to be emotionally at risk. Because when you think deeply, you feel deeply. You carry more than most. You anticipate more. You suffer not just your pain, but the weight of seeing through illusion. You see the small betrayals others miss, the slow decay of authenticity in people's eyes, the emptiness behind social rituals. And sometimes it leaves you numb, or bitter, or exhausted by your own awareness. But this is not a flaw in you. It's a sign you are alive in a world designed for the numb. The pain is proof of your perception. Don't try to remove it. Learn to hold it gently and walk with it. You can sit in a room full of people and feel utterly unseen, not because you're invisible, but because your inner world has no mirror in theirs. It's not social isolation that hurts the most. It's existential isolation. No one to reflect your depth, no one to match your sense of meaning, no one who values silence the way you do. You're not lonely because you're unloved. You're lonely because your soul speaks a dialect that few people understand. But this exile, as painful as it is, has a strange gift. It forces you inward. It sharpens your intuition. It deepens your relationship with yourself. And one day, It becomes the soil for your greatest clarity. There will always be moments where you feel the pull to dim down, to say less, to soften your insight, to make yourself smaller so you don't push others away, because you've been taught that being too intelligent, too direct, too aware makes people uncomfortable. So you silence your knowing. You trade truth for harmony. You bite your tongue until your thoughts become trapped in your chest. But Schopenhauer would tell you, the crowd's comfort is not worth your self-erasure. Let them be unsettled. Let them misunderstand you. You are not responsible for their pace. You are only responsible for remaining whole while walking yours. When you no longer need to prove your insight, you step into a different kind of power. Not loud, not performative, but sovereign. Your mind becomes a lighthouse. Not everyone will come to it. Not everyone will even notice. But those who do will be changed by its clarity. You don't convince, you don't chase, you don't explain to be understood. You simply be. Schopenhauer understood this kind of power, the kind that burns without spectacle, when your presence carries weight, without needing to raise your voice. The world celebrates sharpness, but it often mocks sensitivity, as if feeling deeply is a weakness, as if softness is shameful. But emotional depth is not fragility, it's a form of precision. You don't just think critically, you feel accurately. You sense what's missing in a conversation. You detect disconnection in someone's voice. You perceive the wound behind the performance. And while it overwhelms you at times, this sensitivity is not a liability. It's your nervous system doing what it was designed to do, translate reality in full color. Don't harden, just learn when to soften inward instead of outward. You may feel like a misfit in your family, the odd one out, the one who questioned things too early, felt things too deeply, noticed things no one else talked about. That wasn't coincidence, it was pattern interruption. You weren't there to follow the rules. You were there to reveal them, to test them, to break them when necessary. That's the burden of an uncommon mind, to see what others normalize. And when you break the pattern, you may be blamed, mocked, frozen out. But someone has to carry the weight of evolution. That someone might be you. You've been told your ideas are too heavy, your questions too intense, your silence too mysterious. But that's not truth. That's the discomfort of the unready. You're not too much. You're just ahead of the emotional schedule. And being early comes with solitude. But time has a way of catching up. And when it does, you'll be the one holding a torch instead of looking for one. Stay steady. Stay awake. You weren't built to match the culture. You were built to question it. Your thoughts disrupt the comfortable. Your clarity reveals the dissonance. Your standards unsettle the superficial. That's not arrogance. That's design. Schopenhauer didn't want minds like yours to conform. He wanted them to create new frames for what truth could mean. Fitting in isn't the goal. Revealing what's possible is. And that only happens when you stay true to what you see, even when no one else sees it yet. You may feel alone, but you're not isolated. You're positioning, aligning, distilling, becoming the version of yourself that no longer needs approval to walk in truth. This is the invisible phase of strength, the quiet shaping of someone who can't be moved by noise anymore. Schopenhauer's life was lonely, but not wasted. He was becoming what the world would only understand after he was gone. And you're not too far ahead. You're right on time for the version of the world that still hasn't woken up yet. So let the world call you distant. Let them say you think too much. Let them misunderstand your silence, because those who don't understand your depth were never meant to hold it. And your life will shift the moment you stop trying to be relatable and start being real. The more a man has in himself, the less he will want from other people. Let the crowd play games. You build truth. Let them talk. You observe. Let them follow. You lead quietly. If this message resonated, you're not alone. Leave a comment below. I choose depth over distraction. And if you walk this path of clarity, solitude, and thought, subscribe. Because the world isn't made better by those who fit in, but by those who wake up. Until next time, keep shining, not to be seen, but to see.